The morning sky over New York City split open like a broken window. Massive ships, each one bigger than 10 city blocks, pushed through the clouds. Their hulls gleamed silver and purple in the sunlight. People on the streets stopped walking. They looked up and pointed. Some took pictures with their phones. Admiral Kexler stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue planet below. His forearms crossed behind his back. His scales gleamed green in the ship's lights. He had done this same thing on 2,000 other worlds. It was always the same. The primitive species would see his ships, they would panic. Then they would surrender. "Send the message," he told his communications officer. The voice boomed across every radio, television, and speaker on Earth. The translation was rough and mechanical. "People of Earth, you are now part of the Zephyrian Empire. Do not resist. Surrender your weapons. Surrender your leaders. You will be given new homes on other worlds. Resistance is useless." In a small lab under the Swiss mountains, Dr. Lisa Gordon was drinking coffee when the message played. She nearly dropped her cup. Lisa worked at CERN, the big science center where they smashed tiny particles together. She was very smart and very curious. Instead of being scared, she got excited. "Did you hear that?" she said to her partner, Dr. Ben Miller. "They said resistance is useless. But look at the energy readings from their ships." Ben looked at his computer screen. Numbers and graphs filled it. "Lisa, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking their shields work on a frequency we've never seen before. If we can figure out how they work, maybe we can figure out how to break them." Meanwhile, at an Air Force base in Nevada, Captain Jake Morrison was strapping himself into his F-35 fighter jet. Jake had been flying military planes for 8 years. He had flown missions all over the world, but he had never flown against aliens before. "Control, this is Eagle One," Jake said into his radio. "What are my orders?" "Eagle One, you are cleared to engage the enemy ships. Use extreme caution. We don't know what their weapons can do." Jake smiled inside his helmet. "Copy that, Control." "Eagle Squadron, follow me." 12 fighter jets rose into the sky. They were fast and small compared to the alien ships. The aliens had been watching Earth for months. They knew about human aircraft. Their computers had studied every flight pattern humans used. They were ready for anything humans might do, but Jake Morrison didn't fly like the computers expected. He rolled his plane upside down and dove straight at the nearest alien ship. Then he pulled up hard and flew sideways. His wingman, Captain Amy Rogers, followed him in a spiral pattern that made no sense. On the alien ship, the weapons officer stared at his screen. "Admiral, I cannot lock onto their aircraft. Their flight patterns are ... impossible." "What do you mean impossible?" Kexler demanded. "Sir, they are flying in ways that waste fuel and put stress on their machines. No logical pilot would fly this way. Our targeting systems cannot predict where they will go next." Jake fired his missiles at the alien ship's engines. The missiles hit and exploded, but the alien shields absorbed most of the damage. However, something interesting happened. For just a moment, the shields flickered and went down. "Control, this is Eagle One," Jake radioed. "Their shields have a weak point. When we hit them hard enough, they drop for about 3 seconds." Back at CERN, Lisa Gordon was watching everything on the news while running calculations. "Ben, look at this. When their shields reset, there's an energy spike. It's like they have to recharge." "So what does that mean?" "It means they're not invincible. Their technology has limits, just like ours." The first day of the invasion was not going as Admiral Kexler planned. Instead of surrendering, humans were studying his ships. Instead of panicking, they were fighting back. Instead of begging for mercy, they were learning dot in Los Angeles. Army engineer Bobby Chun was looking at pieces of a crashed alien scout ship. The small ship had been shot down by a lucky missile hit. Bobby was an expert at fixing machines and making them work better. "This metal is incredible," he told his team. "It's stronger than steel but lighter than aluminum. And look at these energy conduits. They're carrying 10 times more power than our best cables." Bobby's team worked all night. They took apart the alien ship piece by piece. They studied every wire, every panel, every strange component. By morning, they had figured out how the alien engines worked. "It's actually pretty simple," Bobby explained to his commanding officer. "They use magnetic fields to push against space itself. We could build something like this if we had the right materials." The commanding officer looked confused. "Bobby, are you saying we can copy their technology?" "I'm saying we already are, sir." On day 2 of the invasion, more alien ships arrived. Admiral Kexler expected to find a defeated planet ready to surrender. Instead, he found humans who were shooting back with weapons that hurt his ships. He found humans who were rebuilding faster than he could destroy them. He found humans who seemed to get stronger every time he hit them. "This is not normal," his science officer reported. "Most species take decades to understand our technology. These humans are learning in days." "Then we will hit them harder," Kexler decided. "Send in the second wave." But Jake Morrison and his pilots were ready. They had practiced new flight patterns. Amy Rogers had figured out how to use the aliens' own shields against them by flying close enough to create interference. The human pilots flew like no computer could predict because they weren't following any rules. Lisa Gordon had made a breakthrough too. She had figured out the exact frequency of the alien shields. Now she was working with engineers to build weapons that could disrupt that frequency. Bobby Chun had done something even more impressive. He had taken parts from the crashed alien ship and used them to upgrade a human tank. The tank now had alien armor and human weapons. It was something that had never existed before in the galaxy. By the end of the first week, Admiral Kexler realized he had a problem. The humans were not acting like any species he had conquered before. They were not giving up. They were not running away. They were studying his technology and using it against him. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a message from the humans. Put it on screen." A human face appeared. It was a woman in a military uniform. Her name was General Patricia Hayes, and she was in charge of Earth's defense. "Admiral Kexler," she said calmly, "thank you for the technology. We're learning a lot from your ships. If you want to leave now, we won't stop you. But if you stay, we're going to keep getting better at fighting you." The Admiral stared at the screen. In 3 million years of conquest, no one had ever thanked him for invading their world. He was beginning to understand that Earth was going to be different. 6 months had passed since the first alien ships appeared over Earth. Admiral Kexler had called for reinforcements 3 times. Now a full battle fleet of 200 ships hung in space around Earth. The Admiral was confident that this overwhelming force would finally break human resistance. He was wrong. The Earth that greeted his massive fleet was not the same planet he had tried to conquer 6 months ago. Where his weapons had destroyed cities, humans had built them back stronger. Where his ships had blasted military bases, humans had created new ones with alien technology mixed in. Bobby Chun stood inside what used to be a normal army tank factory in Detroit. Now it looked like something from a science fiction movie. Human welders worked next to machines that used alien energy tools. Regular steel was being combined with pieces of alien hull material. The tanks rolling off the production line had human guns and alien shields. "How many can we make in a day?" asked Colonel Frank Davis, the base commander. Bobby wiped oil from his hands with a rag. 50 tanks a day, sir. Each one has shields that can stop alien plasma bolts and armor that repairs itself. The aliens taught us how to do this when they crashed their ships here," the colonel smiled. "I bet they didn't expect that." High above Earth, Captain Steve Parker floated in zero gravity inside the captured alien cruiser they had renamed New Horizon. Steve had been a Navy submarine captain before the invasion. Now he commanded the first human deep space warship. His crew of 30 included former Navy sailors, NASA engineers, and even a few mechanics from car repair shops. "Captain," called out his second-in-command, Lieutenant Carol Martinez, "we're picking up alien communications. Sounds like they're planning something big." Steve pushed himself over to the communications station. Carol had been a radio operator in the Coast Guard. Now she was monitoring alien military channels using their own equipment. What are they saying? They're calling this the final assault, sir. Every ship they have is coming at once. Steve nodded. Then we better get ready. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them it's time to test our new toys. The moon, something impossible was happening. 6 months ago, there had been only a small research station there. Now, the entire lunar surface was covered with weapons platforms, shield generators, and launching bays for spacecraft. The construction had happened so fast that even the humans working on it were amazed. Amanda Rodriguez floated in the control center of Lunar Defense Station Alpha. Amanda had been a NASA scientist studying Mars before the aliens came. Now she was in charge of turning the moon into Earth's first line of defense. Systems check complete, reported her assistant Tony. Tony had been fixing satellite dishes in California before the war started. Now he maintained alien shield generators that protected the moon's new military base. All weapons online, added Linda Foster, a former Air Force mechanic who now operated alien energy cannons. The aliens won't get past us. Amanda looked out. The window at Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. They better not. If they get past the moon, Earth won't have much warning. The alien fleet began its attack just after midnight Earth time. Admiral Kexler had studied human military tactics for months. He knew humans liked to attack at dawn and defend at night. He planned to strike when they were sleeping and tired, but humans didn't sleep anymore during the war. They worked in teams around the clock, with some people working while others rested. When the alien ships moved toward Earth, thousands of humans were already awake and waiting. The first surprise came when the alien fleet reached the moon. Kexler expected to destroy the small human outpost there in minutes. Instead, his ships ran into a wall of energy that hurt them badly. The moon's surface lit up with hundreds of weapons that fired beams of pure light. How is this possible? Kexler demanded from his bridge. 6 months ago they had no weapons in space at all. His tactical officer, a lizard-like creature with sharp teeth, studied the readings. Admiral, they have built a complete military base on their moon. The weapons appear to be our own designs, but modified. Modified how? They fire faster than ours do, sir, and they use less energy. The second surprise came when human ships rose from behind the moon to attack the alien fleet. These were not the small fighter jets that had annoyed Kexler before. These were full-sized warships built from crashed alien ships and human engineering. Captain Steve Parker led the charge in the New Horizon. His ship looked strange because it was half human design and half alien technology. The hull was human steel covered with alien armor. The engines were alien but controlled by human computers. The weapons were alien energy cannons guided by human targeting systems. All ships, this is Parker, Steve radioed to the other human vessels. Remember what we practiced. Hit them fast, then get out of the way. The human fleet attacked using tactics that made no sense to the aliens. Instead of flying in neat formations like every other species in the galaxy, the human ships scattered in all directions. They attacked from above, below, and from the sides all at once. When the aliens tried to shoot back, the humans were already somewhere else. Jake Morrison was still flying fighters, but now his F-35 had alien shields and weapons. He led a squadron of 20 pilots in an attack on the alien flagship. Control. This is Eagle One, Jake radioed. Beginning attack run on the big ship. The alien point defense systems tried to stop the human fighters, but Jake and his pilots flew in patterns that were impossible to predict. They rolled and spun and dove in ways that wasted fuel and put stress on their aircraft. But it worked. Because the alien computers couldn't figure out where they would go next, Jake's missiles hit the alien flagship's shield generators. The shields went down for just a few seconds, but that was enough. The moon's big guns fired at the same moment, hitting the flagship with beams that punched through its armor. Back on Earth, Dr. Lisa Gordon watched the space battle on her computer screen while working on her latest project. She had figured out how alien faster-than-light communication worked. Now she was building a device that could jam their messages. Ben, are you ready? She asked her partner. Dr. Ben Miller nodded and pressed a button. All across the solar system, alien ships suddenly lost contact with each other. They could not coordinate their attacks or share information about human tactics. "It's working," Ben said excitedly. "They can't talk to each other anymore." The battle lasted 12 hours. When it ended, half of the alien fleet was destroyed or badly damaged. The other half was retreating back into deep space. Admiral Kexler's flagship was still working, but barely. "This is impossible," Kexler said to his science officer. "We had more ships, better weapons, and superior technology. How did they defeat us?" The science officer looked at his readings with confusion. "Sir, I believe they are learning faster than we can adapt. Every time we attack them, they study our methods and find ways to counter them. They are improving their technology by combining their ideas with ours." Kexler stared at the blue planet that had just handed his empire its first major defeat in 1,000 years. "Send a message to the Empire Command. Tell them we need more ships, many more ships." "How many, sir?" "All of them." On Earth, General Patricia Hayes held a press conference to announce the victory. She stood in front of reporters from around the world, looking tired but proud. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, 6 months ago we were invaded by an empire that has conquered thousands of worlds. Today we sent them running, but this is just the beginning. We've learned that there are many other species out there who are suffering under alien rule. We're going to help them." A reporter raised her hand. "General Hayes, are you saying we're going to fight the entire alien empire?" The general smiled. "I'm saying we're going to teach the entire galaxy what freedom means. And we're going to start by showing every conquered world that the Zephyrian Empire can be beaten." In space, the retreating alien ships carried a message that would change the galaxy forever. For the first time in 3 million years, the Zephyrian Empire had been defeated by a species they had tried to conquer. Word of humanity's victory would spread to every corner of the empire, bringing hope to billions of enslaved beings. The war was just beginning, but Earth had already won the most important battle. They had proven that the empire could be beaten. 1 year after the first alien ships arrived, humanity was no longer defending Earth. They were attacking alien worlds. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the human battleship Freedom's Call as it moved through space toward Europa Station, a major alien military base built on one of Jupiter's moons. Kate had been a submarine commander in the Pacific Ocean before the war. Now she commanded a fleet of 50 human warships, each one built from a mix of human engineering and captured alien technology. "Admiral," called her navigation officer, Lieutenant Dan Brooks, "we're approaching the target. The alien base is heavily defended." Kate studied the tactical display. Europa Station was surrounded by 3 rings of defensive platforms, each ring containing hundreds of weapons. Most species would attack the outer ring first, then fight their way through each layer. But Kate had learned that most species were predictable. Humans were not. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan," she radioed to her fleet. "Execute plan Crazy Even." The human fleet suddenly split into 3 groups. One group dove down below the alien base, another group swung up above it. The third group, led by Kate's flagship, flew straight at the station but then stopped just outside weapons range on Europa Station. Commander Zixka watched the human ships with growing confusion. The lizard-like alien had defended the station for 20 years. He had fought off attacks from rebel species many times. But he had never seen anyone approach like this. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human ships are not following. STA and DA are D-attack patterns. They appear to be surrounding us." "Impossible," Zixka hissed. "No one attacks from above and below in space. There is no up or down. Tell that to the humans, sir." Kate smiled as she watched the alien confusion on her screens. Humans thought differently about space combat than other species. They had learned to fight in 3 dimensions from their experience with submarines and aircraft. Other species still thought like they were fighting on flat ground. "All units, begin Phase 2, Kate ordered. The human fleet attacked from 6 different directions at once. Tim Brooks, the engineer who had developed adaptive ammunition, watched from his ship as his special missiles changed shape and speed while flying toward their targets. The alien defense computers tried to shoot them down, but the missiles kept changing, making them impossible to hit. "Direct hits on defensive ring 1, reported the weapons officer. "Their shields are down." But the real surprise came from Dr. Helen Price's latest invention. Helen had been a physicist studying quantum mechanics before the war. Now she was Earth's expert on alien communication systems. She had built a device that could not only jam alien messages but could also send fake orders. "Helen, are you ready?" Kate asked over the radio. "Ready, Admiral. Sending false commands now." Across Europa Station, alien soldiers received orders that seemed to come from their own commanders. The orders told different units to move to different positions. Soon, alien defenders were shooting at each other, thinking they were fighting human invaders. "This is chaos," Commander Zixka shouted as explosions rocked his command center. "Half my troops are firing on the other half." "Sir, we're receiving conflicting orders from multiple sources. I can't tell which are real." The battle of Europa Station was over in 4 hours. It should have taken weeks. When the human fleet landed troops on the station, they found thousands of alien soldiers who were too confused to fight effectively. Marine Colonel Dan Cooper led the ground assault. Don had been a Special Forces operator before the invasion. Now he commanded a unit of humans and freed aliens who fought together using tactics that no Empire species had ever seen. "Remember," Don told his troops as they moved through the station's corridors, "we're not here to destroy everything. We're here to free the prisoners and capture the technology." In the station's detention center, they found something that changed everything. Hundreds of beings from dozens of different species were locked in cells. These were rebels who had tried to fight the Empire on their own worlds and had been captured. One of the prisoners was a tall, blue-skinned woman named Vexara. She had led a resistance movement on the planet Collis before being captured 5 years ago. "Are you here to execute us?" she asked at Don in broken English. "No," Don replied, using a translation device built from alien technology. "We're here to set you free, and we want to teach you how to fight back." Vexara stared at him. "Fight back against the Empire? That's impossible. They have too many ships, too many soldiers." Don smiled. "A year ago, we thought the same thing. Then we learned something important. The Empire is big, but they're not smart. They do the same thing over and over. Once you figure out their patterns, you can beat them." Within hours, the freed prisoners were learning human tactics. Vexara was amazed by concepts like guerrilla warfare and asymmetric combat. On her world, armies fought in straight lines and followed rigid rules. Humans fought by breaking rules and making new ones. "You teach your soldiers to think for themselves?" she asked Dan. "We teach them to think, period. Every human soldier can make decisions without waiting for orders." "Can your people do that?" "Our people were never allowed to make decisions. The Empire chose everything for us." "Then it's time to change that." Back on Earth, Dr. Lisa Gordon was working on her most ambitious project yet. She had built a quantum communication device that could send messages instantly across thousands of light years. The device let human resistance fighters coordinate with freed aliens on distant worlds. "Ben, we're getting signals from 12 different star systems," she told her partner excitedly. "The word is spreading. Other species are starting to rebel." Dr. Ben Miller looked at the data streaming across his screens. "Lisa, look at this. The rebels aren't just using our tactics. They're improving them. Each species is adapting our methods to work with their own abilities. On the planet Dyros, a species of insect-like beings called the Chick had learned human tunnel warfare. But they were much better at digging than humans, so they created underground networks that could move entire armies without being seen on the ocean world of Aquanis. The fish-like Gilans had adapted human submarine tactics to hide their cities under the water where alien ships couldn't find them. On the desert planet Sandros, the rock-skinned Petroians had learned human camouflage techniques and could now make their soldiers invisible against the desert landscape. "It's working," Ben said in amazement. "We're not just winning battles. We're starting a revolution. The news reached Emperor Zixthara on the Empire's capital world of Zentros Prime. The ancient ruler had lived for over 10,000 years and had seen his empire grow to control most of the galaxy. He had never faced a threat like humanity. "Explain this to me again," he demanded of his military advisors. "One small planet has defeated 3 of our fleets and is now inspiring rebellions across the Empire." General Mexler, the Emperor's top military commander, shifted nervously. "Your Majesty, the humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They adapt quickly, they think in ways our computers cannot predict, and they share their knowledge freely with other species." "And now half the Empire is in rebellion?" "Not half, Your Majesty, but rebellions are spreading. Worlds that have been peaceful for centuries are suddenly fighting back. They are using human tactics and human technology." The Emperor's 4 eyes glowed red with anger. "Then we will destroy the humans completely. Send every ship we have, turn their planet into dust." "Sir, that may not solve the problem. The humans have already spread to other worlds, and their ideas have spread even further. Even if we destroy Earth, the rebellions will continue." For the first time in his long life, Emperor Zixthara realized that his empire might actually be in danger. The humans had done something no other species had ever managed. They had made the Empire's subjects believe they could be free on Europa Station. Now under human control, Admiral Kate Sullivan received a message from Earth. President Alex Turner was addressing the United Nations, and his speech was being broadcast across the galaxy using captured alien communication networks. "My fellow humans and our new friends among the stars," the president said, "1 year ago, we were a single planet facing an impossible enemy. Today, we are part of a growing alliance of free worlds. We have learned that the Empire's greatest weakness is not their technology or their numbers. It's their belief that freedom is impossible." Kate smiled as she listened. Around her, humans and freed aliens worked together to repair the station and prepare for the next battle. The war was far from over, but something had changed. For the first time in 3 million years, the Zephyrian Empire was afraid, and they had good reason to be. Humanity had discovered that the most powerful weapon in the galaxy was not an energy cannon or a plasma torpedo. It was an idea. The idea that people should be free to choose their own destiny. That idea was spreading faster than any army could march, and it was stronger than any empire could defeat. 2 years after first contact, the Zephyrian Empire was fighting wars on 50 different worlds. What had started as a simple conquest of one small planet had become the Empire's worst nightmare. Rebellions were breaking out faster than they could be stopped. Carlos Martinez crouched in the ruins of a destroyed city on the planet Vorthak, 3,000 light-years from Earth. Carlos had been an army ranger before the alien invasion. Now he was something new, a human resistance trainer. His job was to teach alien species how to fight back against the Empire using human methods. "Remember," he whispered to the group of furry, bear-like creatures hiding with him in the rubble, "you don't fight their strength. You fight their weakness." The creatures were called Ursins, and they had been slaves of the Empire for 200 years. Their leader, a female named Growla, listened carefully to Carlos's words. "What is their weakness?" she asked in her rough, growling voice. "They expect you to fight the same way every time. They think all battles happen the same way. But humans learn that every fight is different. You have to change your plan based on what's happening right now." Carlos pointed to the Imperial garrison in the distance. The alien soldiers were lined up in perfect rows, just like they always were. "See how they stand. They've been doing that for 3 million years. It worked against every other species. They conquered, but it won't work against us." The Ursins had natural advantages that humans didn't have. They were stronger, they had better hearing, and they could see in the dark. But the Empire had convinced them that these advantages didn't matter. Carlos was teaching them that they were wrong. "Growla, your people can climb better than any human. Use that. Attack them from above where they don't expect it." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Rachel Green was working in her laboratory, but she wasn't alone. Standing next to her was Zixter, a tall, thin alien with silver skin and large black eyes. Zixter had been an Imperial scientist until he was captured at Europa Station. Now he was helping humans understand Imperial technology. The Empire's communication system has a serious flaw, Zixter explained in his musical voice. Messages take time to travel between distant worlds, sometimes hours or even days. Rachel looked at her quantum communicator, which could send messages instantly across the galaxy. So while we can coordinate attacks in real time, they're always behind. Exactly. By the time Imperial commanders know about a rebellion, it has already spread to other worlds, Rachel smiled. Then let's give them more rebellions than they can handle. She activated her communicator and sent messages to human resistance trainers on 20 different worlds. Within minutes, coordinated attacks began across multiple star systems. The Empire's forces were scattered and confused, trying to respond to threats that kept multiplying on the ocean world of Aquanus. The fish-like Galans had learned to use human submarine tactics, but they had made the tactics better by using their natural ability to breathe underwater. Imperial ships couldn't find them because they hid their cities on the ocean floor. Captain Amy Rogers, the former Air Force pilot, now commanded an underwater base built inside a coral reef. She worked with the Galan leader, a sleek blue creature named Splash. "The Imperial fleet is searching for our base," Splash reported, his gills fluttering with excitement. "But they are only looking on the surface," Amy laughed. "Let them look. We'll hit their supply ships from below where they can't see us coming." The Gillans launched their attack using small submarines that moved like schools of fish. The Imperial ships above had no idea they were under attack until their hulls were already damaged by weapons that came from the deep ocean. On the desert planet Sandros, the rock-skinned Petroians had mastered human camouflage techniques. They could make themselves look exactly like the desert rocks and sand. Marine Colonel Lisa Hayes worked with their chief, a massive creature named Boulder. "Your people are invisible when you want to be," Lisa told him. "The Empire can't fight an enemy they can't see." Boulder's people could hide for days without moving, then suddenly attack Imperial patrols. The alien soldiers became afraid to leave their bases because they never knew when the rocks around them might suddenly come alive and attack. Back on Zentros Prime, Emperor Zixtara was receiving reports that made him more angry each day. His military commanders stood before him in fear, knowing that the Emperor often killed messengers who brought bad news. "Explain to me how we have lost control of 47 worlds in the past month," the Emperor demanded, his 4 eyes glowing. Red General Mexler trembled as he spoke. "Your Majesty, the rebellions are coordinated. When we send forces to stop one rebellion, 3 more start somewhere else. They seem to know our movements before we make them." "How is that possible?" "The humans have shared their communication technology with all the rebel species. They can talk to each other instantly across thousands of light years. We cannot," the Emperor's rage grew, "then destroy their communication systems." "We have tried, Your Majesty, but they built their equipment using our own technology. It is scattered across hundreds of worlds. We cannot find all of it." On the industrial world of Mechanus, the robot-like Sidroids had learned human engineering techniques. Their leader, a creature called Circuit, worked with human engineer Bobby Chun to build new weapons. "Your people understand machines better than we do," Bobby told Circuit. "But you never learned to make machines that think for themselves." "The Empire forbade independent thought in machines," Circuit replied in his electronic voice. "They feared we would rebel. Well, now you are rebelling. So let's make some machines that can think." Together, they built automated defense systems that could learn and adapt during battle. When Imperial forces attacked Mechanus, they faced weapons that got smarter with each shot fired. The psychological impact of the rebellions was even more devastating than the military losses. For 3 million years, the Empire's subjects had believed that resistance was impossible. Now they were seeing proof that the Empire could be beaten on hundreds of worlds. Beings who had been slaves all their lives were learning that they could fight back. They were learning human concepts like individual freedom and personal choice. These ideas spread like fire through the empire. Dr. Helen Price, working from her lab on Earth, monitored alien communications across the galaxy. What she found amazed her. "Ben, listen to this," she told her partner. "I'm picking up private conversations between Imperial soldiers. They're starting to question their orders." "What do you mean?" "They're asking things like, why are we fighting these rebels? And what if the rebels are right? Some of them are even deserting and joining the rebellion." On the forest world of Sylvanos, the tree-like dendrites had learned human guerrilla warfare. But they had advantages humans didn't have. They could communicate through their root systems and could hide by becoming part of the forest itself. Captain Steve Parker worked with their leader, an ancient tree being called Oakwise, to plan attacks on Imperial logging operations. "Your people can be the forest," Steve told Oakwise. "The Empire sees trees as resources to be harvested. They don't realize the trees are watching them." The dendrites began attacking Imperial machines that tried to cut down their forests. But the attacks came from the forest itself. Trees would suddenly grab Imperial soldiers. Roots would trip their vehicles. Branches would block their aircraft. As the rebellion spread, Emperor Zixthara made a desperate decision. He called together all his remaining military forces for one final assault, not on the rebel worlds but on Earth itself. "If we destroy the source of these ideas," he told his generals, "the rebellions will collapse." But General Mexler had doubts. "Your Majesty, the humans have already spread to many worlds, and their ideas have spread even further. Destroying Earth might not stop the revolution." "Then what do you suggest?" the Emperor demanded. Perhaps we should try to negotiate." The Emperor's rage was terrible to see. The Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate with rebels. "We will destroy every human in the galaxy if necessary." But even as he spoke, the Emperor knew that the galaxy had changed forever. The humans had done something that seemed impossible. They had taught other species that freedom was worth fighting for. And that lesson once learned could never be unlearned. On Earth, President Alex Turner received reports from resistance fighters across the galaxy. The news was better than anyone had dared hope. The Empire was not just losing battles. It was losing the loyalty of its own subjects. "Mr. President," his chief of staff reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from Imperial governors on 12 different worlds. They want to join the rebellion." Alex smiled. 2 years ago, we were just trying to survive. Now we're liberating the galaxy." Sometimes I can barely believe it myself, but he knew the hardest battle was still coming. The Emperor would not give up easily. He would throw everything he had at Earth in one final, desperate attack. The question was, would humanity and its new allies be strong enough to survive what was coming? 3 years after the first alien ships appeared over Earth, the largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin. Emperor Zixthara had gathered every remaining ship in his vast empire. 5,000 warships hung in space near Earth, ready for the final attack, but Earth was ready too. Admiral Paul Jackson stood on the bridge of the USS Independence, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Paul had been a Navy captain when the war started. Now he commanded a fleet of 800 ships from dozens of different worlds. Humans, Ursans, Gilans, Petroians, Sidroids, and many other species worked together as one united force. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Mary Foster, "we're receiving messages from all across the galaxy. Every free world is sending ships to help defend Earth." Paul smiled as he watched the tactical display fill with friendly contacts. Ships were arriving from star systems thousands of light years away. Each species brought their own unique abilities and technologies, all working together under human coordination. "Tell them they're welcome," Paul said. "Today we end this empire forever." On the Imperial flagship, Emperor Zixthara prepared for what he believed would be his final victory. The ancient ruler had never lost a major battle in 10,000 years of conquest. He could not believe that primitive humans and their rebel friends could stand against the full might of his empire. "All ships, prepare to attack," he commanded. Today we crush this rebellion and restore order to the galaxy, but something was wrong. As the Imperial fleet moved toward Earth, many ships began to slow down or change course. Some stopped moving entirely. What is happening? The Emperor demanded. His tactical officer looked confused and frightened. Your Majesty, we are receiving reports that crews on many ships are refusing to fight. Some are even surrendering to the humans. The truth was that human ideas had spread even into the Imperial fleet itself. Alien soldiers who had spent their lives following orders were now asking questions. Why were they fighting? What were they really defending? Many decided they didn't want to fight for an empire that enslaved entire worlds. Captain Vexara, the blue-skinned woman who had been freed from Europa Station, now commanded her own ship in the human fleet. She had learned to fight using human tactics, but she also brought her own people's natural telepathic abilities to the battle. Admiral Jackson, she radioed, I can sense the thoughts of the enemy crews. Many of them are afraid and confused. They don't want to be here. Can you communicate with them? Paul asked. Already doing it. I'm telling them they can surrender safely. That we won't hurt them if they stop fighting. Across the Imperial fleet, alien soldiers began to understand that they had a choice. They could continue fighting for an empire that treated them as property, or they could join the humans and their allies who offered freedom and equality. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of two armies destroying each other, it became a mass conversion. Imperial ships began switching sides in the middle of the fight. Entire squadrons surrendered and joined the human fleet. Marine Colonel Lisa Hayes led the assault on the Imperial flagship itself. Her landing force included humans and aliens working together, using tactics that combined the best ideas from dozens of different species. Remember, she told her troops as their transport ships approached the enemy vessel, we're not here to destroy, we're here to liberate. Even the Emperor's own guards are prisoners of this system. The fighting inside the Imperial flagship was fierce but brief. The Emperor's elite guards were well-trained and loyal, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Lisa's troops fought with creativity and teamwork that the rigid Imperial forces couldn't match. More importantly, many of the ship's crew simply refused to fight. They had heard the human message of freedom and decided they wanted no part of the old empire. Emperor Zixtara made his last stand in his throne room, surrounded by his most loyal guards. When Lisa and her troops finally reached him, the ancient ruler looked smaller and older than anyone had expected. You cannot defeat me, he said, his 4 eyes still glowing with defiance. I have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. I am immortal. Lisa looked at him with something like pity. No, you're not immortal. You're just very old and very afraid of change. But the galaxy has already changed. Your empire is over. The Emperor raised his weapon to fight, but then something unexpected happened. His own guards stepped away from him. These aliens had served him faithfully for centuries, but they too had been infected by human ideas about freedom and choice. Even your own people don't want to fight for you anymore, Lisa said gently. It's time to surrender. The Emperor's weapon fell from his hands as he realized the truth. His empire had not been defeated by superior weapons or greater numbers. It had been defeated by a simple idea that all beings deserved to be free. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Sam Mitchell was coordinating the largest scientific project in galactic history. Sam had been a research engineer before the war. Now he was in charge of the Interspecies Technology Exchange, a program that shared knowledge between all the free worlds. The surrender is complete, reported his assistant, Dr. Lisa Gordon. Imperial forces across the galaxy are laying down their weapons. The war is over. Sam looked out his window at the orbital shipyards where humans and aliens worked together to build new vessels designed for exploration rather than conquest. No, Lisa, the war is over, but our real work is just beginning. The task of rebuilding the galaxy was enormous. Thousands of worlds needed to learn how to govern themselves. After centuries of imperial rule, billions of beings needed to learn what it meant to be free. President Alex Turner stood before the newly formed Galactic Council. addressing representatives from over 1,000 worlds. The meeting was being held on Earth, but the council itself would rotate between different planets so that no single world would dominate the others. "We gather today not as conquerors and conquered," the president said, "but as equals. The old empire ruled through fear and force. Our new republic will be built on cooperation and mutual respect." In the audience, former imperial soldiers sat next to the rebels who had fought against them. Humans worked alongside Ursans, Gilans, Petrolians, and hundreds of other species. It was a sight that would have been impossible just 3 years earlier. The former Emperor Zixthara was not executed or imprisoned. Instead, he was given a small house on a peaceful world where he could live out his remaining years. Some people thought this was too merciful, but the humans insisted that their new society would be built on forgiveness rather than revenge. On the moon, children from dozens of different worlds played together in the low-gravity playgrounds that had been built where weapons platforms once stood. Human children taught alien children how to play baseball. Alien children taught humans games that had been played on distant worlds for thousands of years. Dr. Rachel Green, now Director of Interspecies Communication, watched the children play while working on her latest project, a universal translator that would allow any species to communicate with any other in real time. "It's amazing," she told her colleague, Dr. Ben Miller. 3 years ago, we didn't know we weren't alone in the universe. Now look at us." Ben smiled as he watched a human girl and a young Ursan cub work together to build a sandcastle. "We didn't just defend our world, Rachel. We changed the galaxy." The transformation was not complete and would take generations to finish. There were still worlds where beings struggled to understand freedom after lifetimes of slavery. There were still conflicts between species that had been enemies for centuries. There were still those who missed the old empire and its simple, brutal order, but something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. For the first time in 3 million years, beings across thousands of worlds could look up at the stars and know that they were free to choose their own destiny. The Zephyrian Empire had tried to conquer Earth because they saw it as just another primitive world to be easily dominated. They had no way of knowing that Earth was home to a species that would rather learn than surrender, rather adapt than submit, rather teach freedom than accept slavery. In the end, humanity's greatest victory was not military but moral. They had proven that even the mightiest empire could not stand against the simple idea that all beings deserve to be free, and that idea, once unleashed, had spread faster than any army could march and proven stronger than any weapon could be. The galaxy would never be the same.